Democrats should move on from identity politics. It's not working. For them or for us, Democrats are hemorrhaging the very voters they think they're pandering to. The Financial Times writes, Democrats are going backwards faster with voters of color than any other demographic, and suggests the reason is that a less racially divided America is an America where people vote more based on their beliefs than their identity. Exactly. Far-left liberals are living in an old paradigm. Americans don't fit into neat little boxes anymore. You're still building your politics around slicing and dicing people into these fixed categories. Democrats need to get the memo that you can't win elections anymore by automatically assuming you're going to get every voter who's not these guys.
Bill Maher is raising serious concerns, arguing that the Democratic National Committee is drifting further away from the everyday experiences of average Americans. With midterm elections approaching, and even after some recent Democratic victories, Maher insists that deeper structural problems remain unresolved. On Real Time with Bill Maher, he sharply criticized party leadership for promoting policies that he believes sideline traditional American principles. And as always, make sure to subscribe now, because this conversation is only beginning to unfold.
Point, I want to get to something very important. How many know what SAM stands for? It's a new phrase. It stands for Speaking with American Men, SAM. This is the new movement by the Democratic Party. They lost the men vote a lot last time, so they had a meeting up at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay, south of San Francisco. I'm not making this up, where they served mini lobster rolls and had heirloom tomato carpaccio and seared sea bass in their conclave to decide how to win back the American man. Now, look.
It's because we used to have conferences at Harvard to figure out what the working class needs, and so now we're moving west.
You got to own who you are. I get it. These are the mini lobster roll people.
Recent election results exposed a concerning pattern for Democrats, particularly among male voters. A noticeable portion of men shifted away from the party, and the reasons behind that movement are becoming more difficult to dismiss. Many men feel they are increasingly depicted as ineffective, unnecessary, or incapable of self-reliance. That perception has fueled resentment, irritation, and a deepening sense of exclusion. Instead of remaining quiet, those frustrations translated into voting decisions. In response, Democratic officials launched outreach efforts and forums designed to reconnect with male voters. The real question is whether they fully grasp the root issue. Let's examine closely and see if genuine understanding is emerging. Because elections hinge not only on policy proposals, but also on respect, identity, and acknowledgement. When voters feel that respect is missing, they respond accordingly.
They had this symposium, and we got a hold of what was this is Speaking with American Men. This is a real thing that they're doing, and they have these seminars. Would you like to hear what was said? Okay. These are ways that they want to seminars that they had to try to win back the typical American male, like how to keep your liberal base while putting guns on your Christmas card. That was one that I wanted to. Best protein powder for a clean bulk, another dude conversation starter. Bud Light etiquette, when to drink it, when to shoot it. Fishing, the bizarre hobby working class men enjoy instead of pickleball.
These new talking points may sound strategic, but if Democrats believe this approach alone will regain male support, they could be misjudging public sentiment. Most men are not preoccupied with superficial cultural debates or lifestyle trends. Their worries are far more practical and immediate. They're focused on employment stability, rising living costs, mortgage obligations, and the safety of their families. They value the pride that comes from providing, protecting, and earning respect for their contributions. What many object to is being reduced to oversimplified stereotypes, portrayed as ignorant, harmful, or perpetually flawed. That portrayal clashes with how many men see themselves: responsible, hardworking, and committed to their families. They're not seeking praise. They simply do not want to be ridiculed. They want recognition for their efforts and responsibilities, including their sense of masculinity, without being told it must be suppressed or apologized for in modern discourse.
The only scene that you're obsessed with in Titanic, hint, it has tits. Bruce Lee versus Bigfoot, mythical fight scenarios to man up your Joe Rogan appearance. Intersectionality and the importance of shutting the fuck up about it. And undouching your face, man beards from Ted Cruz to J.D. Vance.
You can almost detect that subtle grin on Maher's face, the kind that communicates skepticism without a single word. It reflects disbelief at what he views as the DNC's disconnect from everyday male concerns. This conversation is not about exaggerated toughness or cultural symbolism. It centers on stability, meaning, and feeling appreciated in a society where some men believe their efforts are undervalued. Maher appears to understand that men are not chasing cliches. They are pursuing security, dignity, and the chance to build fulfilling lives. Yet many feel overlooked. If the DNC intends to restore trust, symbolic gestures will not suffice. The party must adjust its messaging, address tangible concerns, and communicate authentically. Otherwise, that faint grin could evolve into a far more serious signal, one that warns of missed opportunities and ignored realities.
I do give a shit who wins the next election. And outdated racial pandering is one reason Democrats lose elections. When Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi put on kente cloth, I don't think it earned them one vote for their powerful emotional ties to Ghana. Here in California, we're now segregating kidnapping. Really, California doesn't just have Amber Alerts for missing children. We have Ebony Alerts for black children and Feather Alerts for Native American kids. What is that?
Democrats did not only experience slippage among male voters. They also saw declines within key racial constituencies, particularly among Black and Latino communities. While the shifts were not dramatic enough to overhaul the electoral map entirely, they carried symbolic weight. They indicated that Donald Trump and his political allies were gaining traction in areas once considered reliably Democratic. That development alone triggered widespread concern. Some observers argue that the shift reflects fatigue with messaging perceived as scripted or detached from everyday struggles. Voters are responding less to identity-based appeals and more to economic pressure, public safety, and upward mobility. When political messaging feels repetitive or symbolic without practical impact, its influence weakens. At its core, politics revolves around trust and results. Even modest electoral changes can reveal growing dissatisfaction beneath the surface, discontent that can expand into a larger political challenge if left unaddressed.
Look, even if you like identity politics, this kind of thing is antiquated. From 2010 to 2020, the number of people identifying as multiracial in America went up 276%. 1 in 5 newlyweds now are in an interracial marriage, and that number goes up to 100% in ads for Subaru. You couldn't do a remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner today because almost 100% of Americans approve of interracial marriage, especially with rich in-laws. And 95% of white women would leave their husband to marry Idris Elba.
Maher contends that what he calls outdated racial messaging strategies are becoming less effective in the modern political environment. In his assessment, voters are increasingly skeptical of communication centered primarily on identity, without clear, measurable outcomes. He argues that older campaign tactics, targeting specific groups with symbolic language and tailored promises, no longer guarantee dependable support. The electorate is evolving. Communities are not voting uniformly as strategists once assumed. Economic conditions, cultural transformation, and personal priorities now shape decisions more heavily. Voters are scrutinizing performance rather than rhetoric. Predictable demographic loyalty is weakening. In Maher's view, this marks a significant shift in American politics. Political parties cannot rely on inherited allegiances. They must continually earn confidence through transparent policies, straightforward communication, and tangible results that resonate with a diverse and changing population nationwide.
Who says, as humans, we are obsessed with race, and that obsession can really hinder people's aspirations. Actress Raven-Symoné agrees. She told Oprah, "I'm tired of being labeled. I'm not an African American. I'm an American." She says, "I don't know what country in Africa I'm from. My roots are in Louisiana." And you don't have to agree with that. But it's a point of view a lot of people have. It should be respected. Morgan Freeman says the way to finish off racism is stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. There's even a movement now to ban racial questions on the census, and many of its leaders are people of color, like Professor Sheena Mason, who says to undo racism, we have to undo our belief in race.
For many years, identity-driven politics served as a powerful mobilizing force for the left, strengthening coalitions and encouraging turnout. It fostered emotional bonds and a sense of shared political purpose. Today, however, that strategy appears to be losing momentum. An increasing number of voters question whether identity-focused messaging produces meaningful improvements in daily life. Rather than symbolic validation alone, people want concrete outcomes, stronger economic prospects, safer communities, and a stable future. Attention is shifting toward measurable achievements instead of carefully crafted language. Citizens are evaluating whether campaign promises result in substantive progress or remain rhetorical devices. This skepticism reflects broader changes in voter expectations. Loyalty is no longer automatic. Leaders must demonstrate effectiveness through action, not assumption. As this mindset expands, traditional political playbooks may lose the persuasive strength they once held over electoral outcomes and public trust.
The liberal group MoveOn.org, formed in 1998 to urge Republicans to move on from the Clinton impeachment. Today's Democrats should move on from identity politics. It's not working. It's not working for them or for us. Democrats are hemorrhaging the very voters they think they're pandering to. The Financial Times writes, Democrats are going backwards faster with voters of color than any other demographic, and suggests the reason is that a less racially divided America is an America where people vote more based on their beliefs than their identity. Exactly. Far-left liberals are living in an old paradigm. Americans don't fit into neat little boxes anymore.
Identity-centered strategies may now be costing the DNC more support than they generate. Many Americans resist being defined solely by a demographic label. Increasingly, voters want to be recognized as individuals shaped by personal values and lived experiences, not confined to racial or cultural categories. The presumption that someone must vote a certain way because others in their demographic group historically did so feels restrictive to many. It can appear dismissive of independent thought and personal agency. Voters want the opportunity to assess proposals on their substance rather than predetermined narratives. They seek persuasion rather than assumption. This shift signals a growing demand for authenticity and respect in political dialogue. As more citizens adopt this perspective, strategies based primarily on identity may struggle to maintain their previous effectiveness across the national landscape.
And that's a good thing, even when it's really stupid. Look, we're all Jelly Roll now. We're sloppy, complicated, and contradictory. 2/3 of Republican voters support weed legalization. And 41% of Democrats own or live with someone who owns a gun. Miss Marvel is Pakistani, and the winner of the last 2 NBA dunk contests is white.
Maher uses these examples to illustrate what he sees as a broader evolution within America. The nation is no longer defined by rigid barriers or fixed expectations tied to background. Opportunity has expanded, allowing individuals from varied communities to pursue paths once viewed as inaccessible. Roles that were historically limited to certain groups are increasingly open to anyone willing to strive for them. According to Maher, this represents advancement rather than decline. It suggests movement toward foundational ideals where individuals are evaluated on merit, character, and ambition rather than assumptions about origin. He frames this transformation as a positive sign of national growth. A society in which barriers gradually erode and personal potential becomes the defining factor aligns, in his view, with the country's original promise of expanded possibility.